Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is an artist, a scholar, and good friend. I'm talking about Denis McCarthy. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind you of a few things. For example, the Awards 2024, which is an indie tabletop role-playing game award created by indie creators and for indie creators. So if you make role-playing game stuff, check out show notes to see the links where you can submit your work. And also, if you like the show, subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a review so others can know what to expect, and it really helps grow the podcast. And if you have any coins left, check out the show notes to see how you can support the show, pay us a coffee, buy one of my games, and keep this show going, because we have bills to pay, you know. So let's get back to Denis McCarthy. We talked about how his work as an artist, how he's dealing with, problems and disability, and we talked about spirituality, we talked about artistic influence, everything we study, we talked about his interest in history and how that influenced his own work, architecture too, how he's fascinated by it. We talk about GURPS a lot, which is a role-playing game not many people talk about, but Denis is a really big fan. We talk about the materials he uses in his work, talk about techniques, we talk about many things like meditation techniques to help you get into the mood or help you calm yourself and be able to work and concentrate. It was a very enlightening chat. Denis knows a lot, and you know when he talks. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn as much as I did. So let's get weird with Denis McCarthy. Hey, Danny. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, Denis. Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. How are you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good. How's this 2024 treating you?
Well, let's see. I'm out of work on disability right now. I had a knee replacement less than a month ago.
Wow.
So, but it's been doing fine. Life bionic is not bad.
Oh yeah. And do you mean you're out of work? Do you have a day job? I know you're a prolific illustrator for old school RPGs. Are you still doing this kind of work, or are you taking a leave too?
I got some. I'm happy to draw. I've got some work that's waiting payment from a Kickstarter completion, which is Todd LeBack, Third Kingdom Games.
Oh yeah.
Part 2 of his BX Bestiary.
Oh yeah.
A couple of critters for that. A ghoul, a wax golem, a giant oliphant, and a margoyle with 4 arms.
Yeah. Well, for the weirdos, the wonderful weirdos out there that might be listening to us and might not know who Denis McCarthy is, but I also always love to hear from the words of my guests who come here to say who they are, maybe what they do, and if you can you share also maybe a small weird detail about yourself, maybe a habit or the way you do something, coffee or anything?
Well, there's a collection of weird things about me. Like a fair number of creators.
I would say like saying who you are, what do you do, and then you share the small detail. Yeah.
My name is Denis McCarthy. I'm an illustrator for old school games for the most part. My day job is as a special procedures radiographer.
What is that?
I'm an X-ray tech, but I specialize in working in the operating room, in particular with 3D devices that are portable.
Oh.
Portable CT.
Wow.
3D fluoroscopy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm out of work at the moment and eager to do some drawing for anybody who's got something that needs doing. I work in an old school style that you could say is inspired by Tramp and Russ Nicholson. Um, but I am absolutely in awe of people like Evelyn Moreau and Scrap Princess who work in a completely different style from me. So it's nice to see all the different kinds of art that the OSR and the NSR has been gathering to itself. Uh,
Yeah, I
like a
go ahead.
lot of creators, I am a little mentally ill. So there's a fair number of us out there. I'm not going to out anybody else who hasn't done so already, but there's a lot of us who are bipolar. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got low grade attention deficit as well. So um, my focus is not really that good.
Yeah.
And a lot of little rituals I do to help remind me to do things. A lot of list taking and fun with highlighters and things like that. Um, Additionally, it's like I happen to be a Wiccan, which is pretty much a fringe religion in a lot of areas. My spirituality is pagan, so that's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm. And
And
your practice? Do you have practice? Do you do rituals? How is? I mean,
I
this is usually the kind of question we'll leave it more at the end. But since you brought it up,
sure.
how how is that religion affects your daily life, your rituals, or and how maybe it guides you in your life,
Oh,
maybe
the
in
guiding
tough
principles
situations.
are as it harm none, do as thou will, and as it harm none is a little bit more involved than do unto others, because you have to look at repercussions of your activity throughout the world. But principally, it's like I look at things as having everything is having a strong spiritual component, and even the day to day things have are kind of sacred in their way. Um, I look at I am not a theist. I don't. I look at construction of deiforms through ritual, but I'm not looking at there being something ever present. If that makes any sense to you. The gods are there as you interact with them, and not necessarily there when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, yes, my journey to introspection in alternative religions did begin with Jim Ward's Deities and Demigods. It was one of my first introductions to world pantheons, as well as some of the wonderfully made up ones.
Yeah, may he has to repeat to his recent classes. So
Yes,
our
fortunately.
homage to Jim Ward and all he has done for gaming and all he has created and the legacy he has left behind. But yeah, that book is amazing, right? Deities and Demigods.
So I got into mythology heavily, reading Bullfinches and Edith Hamilton, um, and realized that a lot of the books I was raised on, like the Terran Wanderer series by the which is the set in Prydain, is by Lloyd Alexander, was based on the Mabinogion, and that is Welsh mythology. I've got some ancestry over there, and that definitely affects some of my worldview.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Well, and how did you arrive at Wiccan? How did you got into that religion? I mean, did you had a religious upbringing
Oh, I
or
was raised Catholic,
how?
um, and there were a couple of occasions where I had what I thought were religious experiences, but turned out to have been, upon having similar sensations at other times, simply moments of hypomanic euphoria, which is an interesting When it came time to start in high school to take health class and look at the effects of different drugs, I'm looking at the description of cocaine and I'm like, that's kind of a daily thing for me without any powder.
Wow.
I don't need drugs. I am drugs. I mean, I am on a wonderful cocktail and enjoying better living through chemistry now. But being able to have physical sensations like that, and at the time I got diagnosed, I had the wonderful help of having descriptions of people with mental illnesses in various role playing games. DMG had a nice little section on people. I mean, I never got that 1800 strength that people in a manic state are supposed to have. Look forward to it. Never happened. But knowing that there was a thing with a name and that I had a place in the world, even if it was as candid a view as something Gygax put together, and as a fantasy version of pop psychology, did help me deal initially.
Wow.
Just knowing that there's like, okay, that it's not just the doctor telling me this thing, I'm seeing it in literature that I read regularly. I, as I got into a variety of other role playing games, I was always looking at the insanity rules to see how well they described things that I was experiencing. Some did okay, some did not. The DMV from the mid '70s.
Do you have
kind of funny?
Any particular game do you think you kind of like, or you think represents it well or better? This kind of thing.
I'm a big fan of GURPS because it does very cool things of it.
I remember
I'm a
now.
And that's a mental illness in and unto itself. I like a granular system like that. It's skill based. It's been around since '86, so it should be considered old school. But a lot of people.
It's kind of an old Volkswagen, right? It just works, and just keeping messing with it, and it's.
Look, I mean,
all the parts are there, right?
Yeah, the fantasy trip was there from 1977, so I don't see this as being.
I kind of like fantasy trip better because it seems like a simplified version of GURPS in a way.
GURPS was expanded to deal with all the social things aside from the fun.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I liked about it, is that, it's like in this current culture, you hear from 5e of everyone, oh, I roll a 20 to seduce. You can roll your GURPS roll under, so I'd roll a 3 on 3d6, which has got a 0.24% happening, and that should do something. But no, the character I'm opposing has got a 0-point feature that is just not interested. You have no effect on them, and that's a little bit more in conjunction with things. If you got somebody, if you're playing against, if you're making that kind of roll, a seduction roll against somebody who's got a physical addiction problem with that, yeah, they're going to succumb. But plenty of people you got ace people who just are not going to be interested no matter what. And plenty of people who are just not going to go against the grain. And there's ways to account for that. There were some nice ways of handling various mental illnesses, and they change over editions. I mean, bipolar disorder used to be a combination of being overconfident, which lets you talk well enough that people who didn't know you well got a positive reaction from you because you were ever so much more so yourself. Being lazy, and because you just couldn't get around to getting anything done. They later changed it to overconfidence / chronic depression, which has a different set of resistance rolls to it. But I like the way they handled it. I mean, it's like Palladium did a more in-depth version than D&D did, D&D 1E, and the kind of insanity that Call of Cthulhu dealt with was not that great for it, but it dealt with the topic enough to make it a little bit more mainstream and let people see. If you're not going to make fun of a character who got physically injured by the monster, you're also not going to make fun of the guy who looked into the abyss and saw something looking back at him and is a little different now. So the inclusion of these things, I think, did a little something for removing some stigma.
I see. Yeah, that's a very conflictual topic, I would say, because a lot of people say it's very damaging because the way they like throw it, sanity, like you're losing sanity, and it's more about stress and all of things.
There's a couple of
different ways to see it.
With its mechanic for handling stress, I think does a bit better. And liminal horror does.
I'm just saying that this kind of thing, it's very varied and it's very, people have very different experiences, right? And a lot of people would say that the D&D portrait of it might be damaging because it is kind of a disadvantage and treats it like something exclusively bad sometimes, and that might be so helpful for a lot of people. But I think it's nice to see that other people have different experiences and at least saw that as a place, as something that exists and it's there, and we all.
Yeah.
How did that help you? Like, it made you see this? It's part of the world, right? It's part of
see that
what existence.
There was some representation.
I'm an outsider. I am part of this, and there is this in every, even in fiction universe. We are represented there in a way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point,
I think,
right?
Claire Danes did a really good depiction of someone with the disorder in Homeland. But it's just like, I just wish she got medicated, her character.
Yeah.
There is, if you, hypomania is a high productivity state with you've got good energy, you're running at peak performance, and you don't have a lot of the debilitating reductions to your focus and rationality that a higher state of affectation will cause. So, but it's a really narrow little window, and if you lean into it, you can kind of induce it, but that releases it from your control, and you're more likely to spiral out into a manic state. But being able to function while hypomanic is very desirable by a lot of people who got the disorder, and a lot of them will fudge their medications and stuff to try to stay in that state as much as possible. But the problem is it's like as if drinking caused hangovers that lasted weeks.
Yeah, it's not healthy. You can't sustain this rhythm, right?
Yeah, you can't. You can't sustain at that level. So I do avoid it as much as I can. When it comes, I'm more productive. I'll get more drawings knocked out in a couple hours. I'll be more talkative. But generally, I work very hard to try to be a regular person. Or at least to maintain the illusion of it.
Yeah. I talk a lot about trying to trick my brain, into doing the right thing. I mean,
sometimes habit
because because it's always tricking us to do the wrong thing. So I mean, we kind of have to fight back in a way. Yeah. Dennis,
Yes,
one thing I always ask people here, because this is a weird podcast in a way, is what is weird for you? And could you try to define what is weird for you and how do you seek weirdness, both in your work and in your life and experiences in general?
I look at I think about weird a lot. There's a disadvantage in GURPS called weirdness magnet. And a friend of mine, Keith DeCandido, regularly writes short stories, science fiction stories about someone who's a weirdness magnet. And it's like it's on the
I know, but that is disadvantage, by the way.
there's things that happen to you that
Yeah.
are not common. All right. Most people hit the bell curve on probability. Um, Average things happen to average people. Every now and then you get the kind of person who, you know, gets hit with a meteor. That's kind of weird. That's at the extremity of probability. And when those kind of things happen to you a lot, it's like the old version of the word, which had to do with being fated, to having some kind of something written in the stars about what was going to happen in your life and how you were. But I've never quite fit in well. Um, and I've tended to attract to myself a lot of the people who would otherwise be on the periphery as well. I used to work security in the hospital where I work and had a lot of interaction with unhoused individuals, many of whom had mental health issues. But we would fall into easy conversation sometimes. And ordinarily, that's something, the social stigma, the circumstance would be something that caused people to ignore or avoid. But being able to find other people who are off easily and get along well with them is part of it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, weird things. Um,
I think weirdos attract weirdos. I
yes,
mean,
yes,
yeah, my friends and uh, I see a lot of our bands find each other through gaming and through this kind of weird interest that we end up having, I guess. And these things kind of attract this kind of people that think differently, I would say,
yes.
right?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
our games are becoming mainstreamed, which is amazing considering the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah.
Now, I was lucky enough that my parents supported it, my gaming. They had bought. I started with the pink box and the player's handbook. That was originally a gift from my sister, who was a big Tolkien reader. She read the Silmarillion before it was cool, that kind of thing, and it
Mm-hmm.
described the early zines about Narnia and Tolkien, Mythlore, I think it was called. That was
Mm-hmm.
back in like '81, but she was very rapidly growing into dealing with real world issues, and I was losing myself in a fantasy world, so it was getting structure to it was very helpful. I was always obsessed with monsters and things, so it fit in just perfectly. And a year or two later, '82, when I got hold of the Fiend Folio, man, it was nothing like that. I mean, all of the wacky,
Yeah.
weird drawings by Russ, you know, and I was privileged to be published in some publications that had Russ working on them as well. And we did communicate
Wow.
on a couple of occasions, and he even liked.
What did you were working on?
Hmm?
What did you work on with him?
One of the very first things I got published in was uh, Blue Home Journeyman,
Oh yeah.
and Russ redid a Sutherland picture from the Holmes book. That's that fight with uh,
Mm-hmm.
fight coming down the stairs with all the orcs. That's got a, a knight, a priest, and a wizard casting magic missile or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a whole slew of illustrations for that.
Awesome. Wow.
And this was back in G Plus days, so I got my next regular person I was with was John Stater. John Stater.
Yeah, you've been working on this for a long while,
Yeah,
right?
7 or 8 years.
Google Plus days. Yeah. Wow.
So I did a lot of stuff for Blood and Treasure too, which and rusted the cover for one of the monster books. So that was cool. Knowing I was getting billing with him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I've drawn.
That was a painting, right? You
He
did a
did
painting for
I've been doing
the.
just black and white, partly because
Oh yeah.
despite being a techie at work, I'm really shitty with doing layers in Photoshop. So I scan stuff in and make it black and white and just stick with that. There's a couple of paintings I've done. I did some for Charlie Mason. He's the guy who did White Box Fantastic gaming, but he hasn't.
I remember seeing some of your paintings, and he did enjoy your color work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of Lovecraft inspired ones. A lot of what I do gets turned into stock art, and that's drive through. And I'm not Rick Hershey or Del Tigler, but I'm there, and
yeah,
I'm in a lot of.
We have to be there. We have to be there.
Published in. People use my stuff in Kickstarted versions of Swords and Wizardry in Israel, in Poland. I've got stuff in German. I've got, and of course, a whole lot in Hungarian and Czech, because for that little stretch I was working with Gabor Lux before I found out his opinion on trans folk and just had to step away. Because I got too many friends and family who are in that part of the world.
Yeah,
it's just not something that
you feel comfortable
I can stand for. And I tell you though, the stuff
I use it to
mail
get
from him because he keeps sending me retranslations of my stuff. So it's like I've got stacks of stuff in Czech and in Spanish now, because they did Castle Zintalan over as Castillo Zintalan. I'm just not happy.
Well, it's something you didn't know about. It's a good work.
Yeah.
You did good work. The thing is, we do the best that we can, right? We always try to do the best that you can. Yeah.
And
sorry,
we do the best that we can with what we know at the.
Yeah, of course.
We do better.
That's what matters. Yeah. And talking about this, like doing better and stuff, do you see, like, do you reflect about this, about art, about your work, how you've been doing this for a long time, like 8 years, and
I had,
as I've said,
I started actually a lot longer ago. I've been I have an art degree. I got a BFA back in 1990. And that's why I was working security, because it didn't require any specific education. And
and by the way, weirdos that might be listening, sometimes when I went to New York, I met Dennis there, went to museums, we talked about art and stuff, and it's very nice. He's very knowledgeable about this stuff. Yeah. So go ahead, the art degree, and what did you study there?
I did engraving of all things, and figure drawing and acrylic painting. And I come out of that, with, unfortunately, the history I was taught was very Eurocentric.
Oh yeah.
A lot of white dudes and not covering anything pertinent to anybody else. I mean, Jansen's is great as a source of art, of seeing some artwork, but them having the pull of
Mm-hmm.
world art history, when it's only touching lightly on other people and ignoring huge
Mm-hmm.
swaths of folks and
Oh
not
yeah.
letting you know who stole from who.
There's so much thing lost too.
Yeah,
It's if you imagine how much art was simply destroyed by winners of wars, right? Just destroy other cultures, and we can't. It's impossible to even measure how much we don't know about the amazing things we as humans have made.
yeah.
And
And then here and there
yeah.
they'll dig something up and it'll be proof that a non-white culture had sophistication 1,000 years
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before,
Yeah.
while we were still painting in
No.
caves.
No, it has to be aliens.
Yeah.
It can't be. They
Oh
can't
no
be
no
as
no
good as
no.
us. It
It's
has to be aliens.
that was great. Now people knew how to
Yeah.
do things.
Yeah.
If you could tie knots on a string with an even distance, say using your thumb, and you could make right angles with a piece of string anytime you wanted to. That was well known,
Yeah.
and
No, I've been some amazing stuff that people are discovering nowadays by even by other species of humanoids like us, like Homo, other stuff that they had burial rituals. They they did art on walls, and
we have,
imagine how much stuff we have no idea that people are doing. Like people are just discovering so much stuff in the Amazons that we have no idea 10 years ago that people built roads,
yeah, we
in the
had
middle of the
amazing things
jungle.
going on there.
Yeah,
From 17,000 years ago, 27,000 years ago, people were in the Amazon.
yeah,
But I look at 100,000 years ago when we were cohabitating with other hominids, and actually
yeah,
we ate them. I
yeah.
mean, go Homo sapiens.
Primal Quest.
There you go.
uh, yeah,
That's time for a plug.
yeah. Uh, Dennis,
Yes.
talking about this weird and art and everything, and talk about now role playing games. Do you see this game of ours as something weird? And if you do, or if you not, if you even if you do not see it as
What I
it being weird intrinsically, what would you be your favorite part of our hobby as well?
I like.
First, if you think of it weird, and then if what your favorite thing about it.
Oh boy, because there's a lot of weird shit out there. Um, the Arneson and Gygax's work was playground cops and robbers and group play pretend with dice as an arbiter. And yes, John Peterson will tell you that came about as part of oh my god, Braunstein's and things like that. Um,
So many stuff.
Kriegspiel.
I read that book. Yeah, for me it's like so many stuff. It's the Brownstone, Kriegspiel is a little bit of those Amber kind of role playing circles they had, the outdoor survival. They mixed there's so many influences that you see how that was born, and also how they didn't write so much about it because like this was something that was in the community, right?
No, it was a small community, and it was. You talk about Appendix N, and it's like other people would. This was a smear of or an oil check on what was the climate of fantasy and fiction at the time these things were coming to a head. You had books that people had commonly read, and it's like, all right, I just finished reading 100 Years of Weird, which is Weird Tales anthology. Now that they're back in print again, they were
Wow.
they started in 1923 and were publishing Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard and people like that, and C.L. Moore. The people who invented sword and sorcery and cosmic horror, and
Mm-hmm.
how that carried through, and how that affects contemporary fantasy writing. Um, so it was like I was getting a real nice feel for it, and I had just been rereading some of Lynn Carter's anthologies of um, Realms of Wizardry and Kingdoms of Sorcery. I think with the collections, the stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
was was going on from the 30s to the 60s that was shaping the flow of our hobby, and it's like a lot of that stuff is really weird. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and yes, there's all kinds. I mean, knowing the people at the time, Lovecraft was not a man of his time. He
Yeah.
was more racist than men of his time. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
but it was. I had done a painting of a scene from the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, and if you've seen that, it's on the cover of on Drive Through. If you go look to my Lovecraft critters 1 or 2, there's a full color picture of a gug with a bunch of ghouls, a bunch of ghasts climbing on it, and some ghouls are hiding out behind some tombstones while this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, come on, a gug is essentially he read a little bit of Jung and a little bit of Freud and took some basic phobias and threw it all together. And a gug is a cross between a spider and a vagina. And they're
Wow.
it's what they come out as. They're body horror straight up, but
Mm-hmm.
they're also people who don't know the history of the story, who don't know the writer, know enough to be offended by it, as perhaps they should.
Yeah.
But so I was in a bar called Lovecraft where they were celebrating reading his stories, having an art display of Lovecraft inspired paintings, and people
Mm-hmm.
were just giving me the look over that one. And I'm like, yeah, I know why. That's what it was about. And if you
Yeah.
knew what bar you were in and had read the stories associated with, you would know that that was there and that was what was wrong with the writer. Am I wrong for perpetuating it? I don't know. They're creepy as fuck, and I've seen some really good ones. And it's like again, I like a particular quality of line. Um, I try to play to um, the style somewhere between Russ and Trampier, but people who are completely other than that. Crab
Mm-hmm.
Princess, who draws these almost abstract scribbles that are really emotionally evocative. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she just take for example the one almost everyone's probably seen, which is the picture of the goblins in Skirple's Tomb of the Serpent King.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're just like a handful of little lines and squiggles, and they're just creepy as hell, and it's really effective, and it lets you know that the whole Eurocentric classic Renaissance naturalism bullshit is not the only way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of space for outsiders to make things that what is capable of causing an emotional response with you that is in keeping with what the artist intended is art. And if you can give a thematic illustration for something, even if it doesn't look like a photorealistic image, and it's done well. If it gives you the feeling of it,
Yeah,
and I try to give the
and
feeling.
transmits a message. I think it gives you an idea and tells a story. I think it's what is the illustration about. As you said, like the art from Scrap Princess, they give you this image of the very scrappy creatures. They do not like goblins, so they're weird. They're much scarier, right? And they're scribbles, so maybe someone scribbled
Not
that when, like, in fear, they were never.
things
Yeah,
are
it's
the
it tells a
the
story.
thing Scrap Princess
You know.
does. They draw things that are like the impressions you would get if you were having children trying to depict their nightmares.
Yeah,
The thing that
yeah.
lives in the basement.
Make and make the monsters very monstrous because you can see them clearly. So
Which is a big difference
it's great.
between the whole semi-anime,
Yeah, or very
excessively
digital
cute
art.
ogre female.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the monsters are alien. They're different. They're weird.
Mm-hmm.
They're disturbing. I mean, and take a look
I love,
at Moreau stuff.
for example. Yeah. I say I love, for example, DCC, that they have very different artists, and you see very different styles of art, and like in the same book, in the same adventure, sometimes depicting similar characters, and it's very. I love that they did the Sailors of the Starless Sea, like artist editions,
Yes.
and every artist would do it differently. I love that, and I kind of feel like I want to make a Sailors of Starless Sea cover, just to be like, yeah, I have one, so I made one too. That would be fun.
Why not? You got a one-eyed guy with a spike wielding a flail. That's kind of you can go to town all kinds of ways with that, because sure, that's a level.
That would be
that was a fun little
cool gem to do too. Like
with
each other's
something
remaking each other's illustrations. I mean, that would be fun. Like artist RPG jam, like each one remake one of iconic art from each other, reinterpreting. That could be a fun like community building exercise for artists too.
Well, they do things like that. Do this in your style on Instagram and Tumblr.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Dennis, do you go ahead? Sorry.
Going back to weird things in games.
Mm-hmm.
Us attempting to be simulationist of life with a couple of penciled descriptions written down, and the results of some weird shaped pieces of plastic thrown at it, and that describes life or an activity. That is a weird idea.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
what gets weirder is the obsessions different people have about which way of doing it is better. I was listening to one of your countrymen talk about, is there an ability check?
Oh yeah.
And
Rafael Balbi, my friend.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like there's a difference between. There's always the argument about, Matt Finch saying that the answer to the situation is not going to be in your character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time saying there were tools on your character sheet you can use. But I always would do things like I would ask for a combination. Give me a description and maybe make a roll. But I want the description of your interaction with something. And I just picked up, what the hell was it called? An alternative experience system for OSE.
Mm-hmm.
Feats of exploration. And it takes some of the ideas of from second edition AD&D on giving awards for performing actions in character that deal with obstacles. It's like you don't get the experience from killing the orcs if you escape them. You just get the money if you got their loot. But what if the obstacle was some kind of death trap? Should you get something for that? And it has a system for it, and being fixed point things, hidden block trap, 250 experience points. It's more of you take a percentage of 2%, 5%, 30%, I think, depending upon how impactful the thing is, of the experience you need for next level.
I see.
Yeah. Averaged out amongst the group.
That's a lot of math, though.
Well, you do it once.
But I mean, you like GURPS,
once
so
each session. Yes, I like. Yes, well, GURPS has math at the beginning and then doesn't have math again.
That's true. I when I play, I always ask, please, someone make my character. I want a character like this, this, and this. Just make me something.
I am perfectly happy to do that with the majority of the people I play with. And all right, here's something weird about the way I play too. I play on rpol.net, which is a 90s style bulletin board with threads hanging. It's a play-by-post. And I've been running that game since 2013.
Wow.
So 10 years. The only permadeath has been on the part of somebody who, a bad player who was cheating. He kept upgrading his character sheets continuously and giving him magic items. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Even when given the opportunity to scale things back down to where they were, he couldn't do it. Out, banned from the thing, and then I ended up writing an adventure based on that. On going to the area where his characters had died. And
well, it serves some purpose then.
And you want really weird? All right, I primarily play OSE and GURPS at this point.
Nice.
These are the dominant systems of what I was doing. Even when just before while I was waiting to come on, I was losing very badly in a solo adventure that I got from Gaming Ballistic, Dark Lord's Bane, Against the Dark Lord, which is now coming out as Sathor's Bane as a solo GURPS adventure, which, all right, I got so in on the Kickstarter for that thing. I just slid right past where I was going. Okay, the
stuff you're playing, like OSC and GURPS.
The publisher had come up with, it was trying to break into the OSR movement, because he writes for DM's Guild and he writes for the Storytellers Vault, and he was trying to write stuff for OSR stuff. So he came up with his own setting that was kind of like, it was based on a basic fantasy role-playing game, which is in turn based off of a BXified 3E 3rd edition.
Yes.
Is one of the cheapest and easily obtainable game sets you can get. Books only cost about $4 or $5 a piece. You can get them off Lulu. You can get them off Amazon. Have it at your house in a matter of days. And all the PDFs are free. You've got a great community that's constantly writing adventures and things. So he made Odysseys and Overlords. O&O. And that had tieflings in it, it had beast people, and it had spell scorched, which were like elves, except they had runic tattoos all over them. And those were the non-human races you could play. And then they added on that you could play orcs and things like that, which fell perfectly in line with what I was doing. At the time, nobody had a third-party license for writing for GURPS Dungeon Fantasy, except for Gaming Ballistic, Doug, who I had a great conversation with in a totally weird way. I was messaging him about some errata I'd found in the game and accidentally hit the call button on Messenger. So we talked for like an hour about about game systems and dungeon grappling, which is his other thing because he's written grappling rules for OSR as well as for
Oh yeah, I remember
with
that. Like a
control
podcast talking
points.
about this. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta plug my.
Yeah, it was a big book about grappling stuff.
Yes, I gotta plug something in.
Yeah.
Give me just a second.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira again, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite games, a game that I created, and you know if you listen to the podcast, I love dinosaurs, and it's called Primal Quest. It is a weird stone and sorcery adventure game. It's a NSR game, which is this game that caters to the old school style of play, but has more modern and more cinematic gameplay adapted to our modern sensibilities. It has adventure with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, spirity, sorcery, aliens, elder gods, and much, much more. It's very pulpy. It has, a complete rule set, a mini hex scroll, an adventure introductory adventure. You can find it at Exalted Funeral, itch.io, Drive-Thru RPG, and your best local game store. And we're releasing more and more stuff for it, so stay tuned and play Primal Quest. So let's get back to the weird with our chat. Dennis, do you have any ritual, like a creative ritual you perform before you sit down to do your work, to draw, anything like this? Any practice that helps you get into the mood?
I usually turn on some Dungeon Synth. Anything by Hermetic Catastrophe, Knoll and Kobold, Basic Dungeon, and Dungeon Troll, really nice stuff, as well as the recent soundtrack for Dolmenwood that came out.
Oh, I haven't listened to it yet, but I didn't even know it was out. I probably got the email, but I didn't check. But yeah, that's probably very nice.
It's very nice and soft. But Dungeon Troll, I'd recommend. He's got like 6 albums out on Bandcamp. They're like $5 a pop.
Yeah.
And
I have some Dino Synth from the Bandcamp. Do you know this?
Oh no, I didn't know.
It's like Dungeon Synth, but it's for kind of primal kind of music, and it's perfect for Primal Quest. Dino Synth, very good.
That's cool. So I'll listen to that. And
do you have a practice to draw every day? Do you? How do you?
Wish I was that organized. But I have specific paper I use. I use Legionnaire, Stonehenge, white. I've got my wife bought me, and she's an absolutely wonderful person. And brilliant, smarter than I am. Doesn't game though. Bought me a case of sampler paper from Legionnaire paper, and it had all kinds of colors in it and qualities and paper weights. So I've been getting this one pad. I use Pilot G2 gel pens in size 38 and 1.0 for my lines, and usually a number 2 pencil because it erases well. And I've been using the same damn kneaded eraser for some years now. And it was like, at some point, I'm going to have to replace it. And I have replacements. I tried doing stuff with design markers like I did in school, but one of the problems is that when I use the shit I do in Photoshop to subtract pencil marks, it usually takes off half the color and just leaves me with a few specks.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I either got to take it as it is and manually go after the pencil marks, which again, my process is I'll draw, ink, erase, scan, go to Photoshop to crop it and lighten it and intensify the contrast a couple of times, and then I go out of Photoshop and I go into Paint, the old MS Paint.
Wow.
From
Why don't you use Photoshop to paint?
It doesn't give me a big enough workspace.
Okay.
The screen is all tools.
Too crowded.
Too
Yeah,
crowded.
there's too. But you can hide that stuff. You can just hide all the stuff.
I know I haven't been able to enlarge the image enough
Okay.
without it lurching.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I'm using a regular mouse, I'm not using a pen. I might end up getting one of these here. I'm trying to show it. One of these vertical mice that my wife likes using. She gets all kinds of ergonomic stuff. She used to transcribe for a radiologist. So we've got keyboard, we've got the sloped keyboards and stuff, and she's got an ergonomic mouse.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I gotta remember that because I saw about my friend Jim from Phoenix has pain in his hands because of the keyboard too. Now he uses the ergonomic stuff and it's better.
Yeah.
And my wife has been having a lot of pain on her hands because she plays World of Warcraft and work too on the computer, and she's having like pain in the hands. And I thought, yeah, maybe the ergonomic keyboard, maybe that might help.
It does. It gives you, and getting a wrist rest as well does. So the keyboard I've got on my old computer is one of hers. So it's got a wrist rest and the ergonomic shape for the keys. Then I go into Paint, and I'll blow the thing up to 600x and clean it pixel by pixel. And then it will shrink back down. Now I've discovered limitations of this because it's like I usually work in 600 DPI. That's not necessarily ideal for print.
Yeah. It's always 300 is enough, but it's good to be safe, right?
No, 300 usually works for most people. Dyson works in 1200, and he's got a gigantic scanner. Dyson Logos.
Oh, he works at 200?
1200.
Oh yeah. Because we can make his maps as you have right behind you as a shower curtain, and it's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw someone had printed out the
You could plot it on your living room wall too if you have one of those printers that can print.
He did. Someone had
print
printed
on walls.
The Orkin Vault, and it was 28 feet long.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, because he had done it on.
Now I want to print on my wall.
He done it on, I think, 12 sheets of 11 by 14, and then merged them together.
Amazing.
He's the one we all look to for. Gee, I wish my Patran was doing it as well. He's the only one I know.
Yeah.
Patran uses him as a commercial because he's the only one among us who was able to quit his day job to just do maps, and was able to pay his mortgage with his Patreon money. Good for him.
Yeah, amazing. He's an inspiration, and his work. I've copied his work, to learn to find my own way of doing things, and it's very, very influential. And you see around there, right? Everybody kind of starts doing Dyson style kind of art, kind of maps.
And the triple line crosshatch.
And it's very hard to do. It seems simple, right? It's tough. I just do three here, three here. It's not.
The thing I've been working on is
it's a technique in itself. It's amazing. It's very kind of relaxing. Once you find how to do that, it's kind of nice. It's kind of relaxing.
I use a very similar technique for one of my cross hatching patterns for my shading, and especially anytime cloths. You've seen it on some of the artwork I've given you. I have that pattern in there as well as standard cross.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of things when I started working for John Stater. I was using that as the texture pattern for a lot of things. But started trying to do a conversion to OSE of something I had originally done for Swords and Wizardry Light, which I was trying to get a game group of people to do pickup games, and being a
Uh-huh.
light set of rules I could throw at everybody seemed like, continual light seemed like a good idea. I didn't realize it was in protest of Swords and Wizardry third edition, though, which really pissed me off because I really liked that edition.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's so beautiful. The one made it by entirely theme of women, right?
Yes, gorgeous stuff.
Yeah, it's wow. The page borders on that book are so good.
It is
So
excellent
beautiful.
stuff, and I think there's at least
Each chapter has like a theme. It's very well made, I would say.
and out of print deliberately.
Yeah.
You can find it on Amazon, and I think if you search for a PDF of it, you can find it, and someone's got it under a file of this. I think Gary Gygax, on, as a download because they stopped getting it out.
That's a very fun name, by the way. That's a very fun name to make. Gygax. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's integration of, I know. That's cool. I don't know. I like it.
It is one of my favorite editions
yeah.
of Sword and Wizardry. I was like, yes,
It
of
is.
course I like
It is.
I like that Lotus cover. I like
Yeah, I mean,
Lotus
there's
does in Peter Mullen.
we can like both stuff, right?
Yeah.
That can be
Why not both?
both. We could be, yeah, exactly. I remember there's some really good art. I think I have these editions here, too. Yeah, but I mean,
It's the green one.
yeah. Now, yeah. Now it's someplace else too, right? Because that was with Forgot Games, and now Mythmare's doing
They pulled it.
Sword and Wizards again too. Yeah. Dennis, talking about something else now, I would like to ask you about inspirations you might have, other artists and creators that maybe helped you find yourself in your art, and this can be not necessarily only other illustrators and artists or writers, game designers, but it can be from any other medium. It can be maybe a painter, maybe a comedian, maybe a songwriter, anything, any other maybe other artists that helped you be who you are, I think.
Well, yes, the fine crew of Gustav Doré, the engraver, Harry Clark, Gustav Doré, D-O-R-E.
Oh yeah, Gustav Doré. Yeah.
I can't pronounce it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how we in Brazil pronounce it. You probably pronounce it different. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know how they pronounce it, where he came from too. But yeah.
See, what was it? Harry Clark. Harry Clark was a stained glass window designer who illustrated a lot of Poe. And I follow, the golden age of illustration on Instagram, and I saw some of the stuff there, and I went and I got a book of it. Henry Justice Ford, big time illustrator in the 20s, was illustrated all the red fairy book, the blue fairy book, the green fairy book, what have you. And a lot of his stuff, Tramp was like practically tracing. One with the Cloud Giant, there's almost an exact from Jack and the Beanstalk that he did. Nothing bad to Tramp on that.
Of course. And Russ too.
Loved them both, and Sutherland. And oh my God, I can't remember this person's name, but there was a graphic artist who most of the designs for Sleeping Beauty from 1959 by Disney did, and their castle with the witch and the pig-faced orcs, just great stuff.
Awesome.
Now, I'm wearing, let me stand up for a second so you can see it. I'm wearing a Frog shirt.
Nice.
Arnold Lobel. Um,
By who?
Arnold
You said?
Lobel. Lobel.
Oh, Arnold.
Lobel.
Okay.
Beautiful children's
Nobel.
story author. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like Toad is chronically depressed, and Frog is just there for him sometimes, and they'll just have days together where they go outside and picnic or ride bikes or just
Mm-hmm.
friends. It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And Mercer Meyer is another childhood artist that I love dearly. Did tremendous crosshatch work.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Nightmare in My Closet was
Cross.
a great one. Kid stands up to his nightmare, shoots him with a pop gun, breaks down crying, and ends up moving in with the kid. Except he wants him to close the closet door because there's more stuff in there.
There were stuff in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
What scares them?
Yeah. Dennis, what did you say would be the weirdest thing about your work, or maybe the thing that is your mark or weird mark that you leave in the stuff that you do? Uh, that's only you. That's unique for yourself. Can you identify anything like this in your work?
It's not. I don't leave a signature for the most part. I used to go out of my way to try.
But I mean, when I look at your art, I see it's your art. I can clearly identify that is Denis McCarthy art because it has a style, it has a way of being, and I was just wondering if you see that as yourself, and you can maybe elaborate on what makes your art yours in a way.
There's an element of weirdness to a lot of what I do. I mean, it's like I get very exacting about trying to draw armor that looks like armor. Because I got issue with a lot of armor types in role playing games, and I spent a lot of time in the museums looking at the reconstructions, and I follow a lot of people.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah,
Hima, and
I see the connections
yes,
of what we did when I met you and the stuff that you do. You
the
know.
people who
So
do
yeah.
Hima and Buchert, um, they do a lot of armor reconstruction. I follow a dozen different armorers on Instagram that I get sources from, and my Pinterest is just full of them. So, and I happen to really, really like Brigandine, and you'll see people wearing Brigandine all over the place in it. So, Brigandine
Yeah.
studded leather is bullshit. Brigandine was cloth armor.
Studded leathers bullshit.
Studded leather is bullshit. Never. It was metal plates on the inside of cloth armor, cloth or leather, that was
Mm-hmm.
worn over a padded doublet or uh, an arming garment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it had metal components to it, and this had to do with the technology of furnaces at the time to make ingots above a certain size of steel. And full size
Mm-hmm.
breastplates were a technological advancement when they started making draft blast furnaces at the end of the 15th century. So in the 14th
Mm-hmm.
century, there was a lot of brigandine being worn. It was made out of small strips, and the shape of it looked like plate with chain, but the components of
Mm-hmm.
it were a lot smaller. So you'd be wearing the way they draw scale armor a lot of the time was the inside of the armor, and the outside of it would have a pattern of nails on it that looked like studs, as if that was all that there was to it. But inside
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of metal, and it was fairly easy to replace if you got one knocked off. On the other hand, the material of it was could be damaged. but it was the best that they could do at the time up until they started layering. They had furnaces that would allow them to get a larger ingot of iron.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess student letter is a thing in RPGs because they look cool, right?
They
And you
look
can
cool, but
have a
it's like
character
we've seen
with a
people.
slightly better AC.
We've seen people.
It's a gaming solution, I
We've
guess,
seen
right?
people in Planet of the Apes wearing it. We've seen Hawk the
Yeah.
Slayer wearing it.
Yeah. They look cool.
See people in Judas Priest wearing
And
it.
leather. Yeah, and leather you can make all kinds of
With the little
sexy
spikes,
garments and very
spiked shoulder pad and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Looks all rough and tough.
Yeah.
And
I know it's fake, but I mean elves are too, so
yes,
but
it's like so. If you go into my game, you're going to be finding less people wearing boiled leather, which was
But what I'm saying, I like the detail you have about this on your art. Your art seems very well researched. I know you're not doing all this. You get pictures of locations, films and real dungeons, and you work that on your composition, on your scenes, and I like it a lot. It kind of reminds some of the older medieval kind of stuff. Some of the scenes from Monty Python in a way, like the characters, the armors, and very very historical in a way, and very kind of theatrical too. It seems instead of doing this more, because a lot of our illustrations now are very influenced by comic art. The angles and the way action is portrayed. It's very
drawn the Marvel way.
Yeah, but you have a very theatrical and
then I got a book by David Hockney called Secret Knowledge. Holy shit, did it piss me off?
What's that?
All right.
Because that's
Secret Knowledge was the way the Renaissance perspective was transmitted. There was one fellow who drew in perspective with a ruler and everything in 13 something or other. I can't remember his name, but it's you could see it was like a whole bunch of trees spaced out and with horsemen in between. I don't remember him, and Judy Broglin, my art history teacher, is going to be mad at me because I don't. But the whole business of perspective and photorealistic painting was done with lenses and mirrors and tracing. So David Hockney is a watercolorist who was semi-abstract in what he did, who went and researched Renaissance painting techniques and was able to duplicate them by having people stand on one side of a wall with bright light with a little pinhole in it and put his canvas where the light reflected, and it would reflect the perfect image of them, and he would trace it. And there was a whole thing about the guild system in painting where you'd have someone who'd come in and paint the background and a journeyman who'd come in and paint the jewelry, but the hands and the face were done by the master, because only he was that good. He fucking traced it upside down.
Yeah, well.
Oh my god! When I found I wanted to like go rattle the cages of the professors I had at back then, but they're probably not with us anymore. There's one of my professors who's a sculptor, Massimo Perucci, who's still out there casting bronzes in Perugia, Italy. He's fucking awesome. But I don't know if Diane Himmelbaum or the other ones are there who were saying my stuff wasn't naturalistic enough when all they did was fucking trace.
Yeah.
Lenses and mirrors, man. So it was the Renaissance was driven by the Glass Blowers Guild and their ability to make flat glass and curved glass with silvered backing.
Oh yeah, I didn't know about that. Do you think all artists in the Renaissance used stuff like this, like
Well, take a look at Vermeer.
The mirrors and
Vermeer
lenses.
used the camera obscura.
Oh yeah.
Paintings were small, so he would go under a hood and there was a pinhole in front and a frame in front of him, and he would paint over the details as they were projected onto his canvas or his mason.
Yeah, but Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, all those more famous.
Michelangelo was a sculptor primarily, and
yeah, I mean most of these guys thought about painting as this very secondary thing they did, right?
Whereas Leonardo was probably one of the people who independently designed the lenses by himself along the way of doing everything else.
Mm-hmm.
This is not to say that the people couldn't draw like this. You have people who were in training under them who were learning to be about that good without being given the secret knowledge of it was done with a lens. They were always kept in the dark to a degree, and they would get almost as good as or as good as the master without having that particular magic ability. Artemisia Gentileschi, she's another powerhouse. And that's again one of the problems with the education that you get is that it is all cis white men that are being presented to you as the artist, and everybody else is falling by the fucking wayside when it's totally should not be that way.
Yeah. That thing only starts to change really recently as more voices being heard and being able to
So
who tells the story matters a lot too.
It's another thing why I try to draw as many POC and female and intersex kind of looking people into my drawings as I can, because people need to see themselves at the table.
Yeah.
The tables, there's enough chairs for everybody to come to the table, and you're more likely to sit down and play if you see that there's a character that looks like you.
Of course, yeah. I remember the DCC has some very inclusive art and characters. They're part of the crew, and I remember people approaching them and saying that finally they had like a big poster of someone that looked like them in the game, and that was really something special, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, talking a little bit more about yourself. We're above an hour and 15 minutes talking about games and stuff, and I want to explore just a little bit about who Dennis is and what you do and your personal experiences. And first of all, I'd like to ask you, do you have any hobbies or anything you do for fun outside of role-playing games?
I play a few video games here and there. Not.
Oh yeah.
Most of it fairly antique. My kids are collectors of retro systems, so they just got us a Switch so we could play Mario RPG: The 7 Stars again, which we last played on a Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
So they remade that game, and we just were happy to go into it. And for the most part,
the remake of Mario RPG,
the Super Mario RPG: The 7 Stars.
Oh yeah, was it good, the remake?
The Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door. That one is some fucking game. You level up, you gain alternative powers, you got magic items you can wear. I mean, you have your party, you can decide who's in it, up for the fight time. Gee, it sounds an awful lot like something else, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm not always, the biggest on games where you level up per se, but where you get to choose how you level up. Now, there was a certain someone who does not get named anymore, who used to do random tables for leveling up.
Oh, yeah.
There was some good random tables.
Voldemort.
But if
the one shall not be named.
The output of the person who cannot be named is maybe 3 sheets of paper, and that's all that they were.
Yeah. It's very organic, and it kind of favors emergent player too, right?
It deserves.
Do you like this kind of random generator?
Or allow, again, creeping back to my favorite kind of games, which are point build.
Yeah.
I like rolling up something as much as the next guy. as I was having fun rolling up some completely lame characters for the replacements for the pre-gens in this game as they were getting killed off. And I made it all the way to the end and got my ass handed to me. So that was it worked out. It scaled nicely. Playing against the Dark Lord.
Yeah.
What other things do we do?
Anything else? Do you play any instruments? Do you go for walks? Do you hike?
I've got a tinny, or I'm a horrible musician. I don't play anything.
Do you exercise or anything?
I do a lot of PT. I had the injury before I had the surgery, so doing PT for that. Been doing PT for cervical radiotacopathy. I was carrying a backpack that was so heavy my hands are going numb, so I had to do shit with a medicine ball up against the wall. Incorporate some of the Tai Chi I used to do to relax.
Mm-hmm. Why were you carrying a backpack so heavy like this? Why were you carrying a backpack so heavy?
Game books, baby.
Gaming books? Yeah. Well, that's the memory I have. Like going to school
Game
and carrying, school material, but also the player's handbook, the monster manual. Yeah.
Then I had the textbooks for radiology, which were all 4 inches thick.
Oh yeah. That's probably very big.
And if I can give a plug for another artist I like who's been an influence in different ways, Frank Netter. He's an anatomist. He's been former anatomist. He's not around anymore. Hasn't been around since the 90s. But I've caught doctors in the operating room with his textbook open, looking at the diagrams. So he's good shit.
Wow.
I try to get all my X-ray students to pick it up. It says they need it for cross-sectional anatomy. It's one of the best labeled things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dennis, you mentioned about mental health and medication, and that's before that your brain kind of functioned as if you were on cocaine without being on cocaine.
Yes.
But what I'm going to ask you is, have you ever had any experience of mind-altering experiences, be it with deep meditation, or maybe hypnosis, or lucid dreaming, or even using psychedelics or any other substance?
Because it's like, with my personality, I probably wouldn't come back from the trip.
Okay.
I have had very lucid dreaming on occasion that has left me disoriented upon waking. Nothing as great as the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, but there have been times I've directed things.
Oh yeah.
A little bit, but more often than not, the problem I have is what my wife calls catastrophizing, which all of us do, role players especially. We sit and think about, how we'd handle ourselves in a fight, especially if we just come from watching John Wick or some shit like that. Like, yeah, I could do that. No, both of those guys got the same choreographer. It would have been interesting if they didn't.
Yeah.
And my recent injuries put me in a full awareness that if I ended up in a fight, I would probably get my ass kicked because I don't have the mobility I used to. But that doesn't keep me from having compulsory, almost paranoid, intrusive thoughts about being in fights.
Wow, yeah.
So I've been on, I've had to learn all kinds of things, like counting 5 things with each sense to try to ground myself out of it. Get to the point of, it's a degree of PTSD. I would end up with, I've been stuck up a whole bunch of times.
This about counting 5 things with each sense is like, I can hear this, and this. I can smell
Yes, I
is
see
it like
5
this?
things in front of me.
Wow,
I can, or you count it down.
that's very
5 things you can
effective.
see,
Yeah.
4 you can hear, 3 you can feel, 2 you can smell, 1 something
Oh.
like that. But at least you start with that, and you your
Mm-hmm.
breaths as one of those things, and that helps draw you out of it. But I have to lay some thanks on some really expensive medication that's got its own commercial. That if this company did not have a support plan, there's no way I could afford it. And it has made such a difference in my ability to function when dealing with this shit. Um, Please, it's if you're out there and you're bipolar and you enjoy being hypomanic, fuck that shit. Go out and get yourself medicated. Find a way. It is not going to suppress yourself. It's going to help you find your more regular self. And that's something that's important. And you're not going to lose how weird you are. It's just
Yeah.
deliberate for change.
Yeah.
You don't want to be weird
My
because things
kids.
happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be weird because you like something and you stick with it.
Yeah. My kid has autism too, and he was having meltdowns and crises, and we were very skeptical, of medication because everybody has misconceptions about
Yes.
it. Uh, but things got to a point that we had to try it, and I was afraid it's gonna change him, but it's not. It's the same him. It's the same creativity. It's the same joy. The same
Yes.
energy. But he just,
It's a little more
as you
focused.
said, it brings us down. Yeah, it brings us down for our minds, or this whirlwind, because he described it that like it's in my mind a whirlwind of thoughts, of bad thoughts that he can't control, and this kind of just brings everything down a little bit, and he can hold on to himself in a way.
It's an important
Yeah.
thing, being able to find um, the right skills to deal with it. I mean, this is an inborn condition I have. It's not going anywhere. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is no cure. There's treatment of
Yeah.
symptoms, and there's some
Yeah.
symptoms I'd rather not have, even if it means I trade off other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And everybody takes medicine for everything. People take medicine for blood pressure, for heart disease, for so many things. We can't because of our brains. Of course we can. It's
yeah,
the same thing, right? Yeah.
no, it's
Uh,
absolutely. This is as much a part of me as my artificial knee.
yeah.
It's part of me now.
Exactly.
It's the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be eject. My body's not going to eject it and have it pop out like a splinter.
Yeah. Uh, Dennis, now continuing about this personal experience kind of
Yeah.
things. Have you ever had any other weird experiences? Have you ever had any out of body experiences, or
Out of body, no.
near death experience, or
No,
anything like this?
indeed.
Any
I've had. I am a very lazy
even
witch.
a spiritual experience? If you had any
I'm a very
ritual that
lazy
you felt
witch in
really
a way.
connected.
In that I don't um I don't do a lot of hexing. Uh, most of my interaction is prayer of gratitude. Being
Wow.
able to,
How's that? Can you tell us a little bit
I mean,
about?
it's like I'll draw.
Because I always ask people here about their practice of gratitude, and some people have it, some don't.
Oh
And
God,
I'd like to hear
no,
about
God, it's
yours.
necessary. It's like you are. If you pause to think about everything you've got that's positive, your ability to cope with the negative things is a lot easier. Oh my God, this is happening. This is
Oh yeah.
happening. That's one thing, but it's also, I got through this surgery. I got my health. No one else in my family's sick right today. Are the ones that they just recovered from. Um, we're all employed to some degree. Well, I mean, in
Mm-hmm.
between right now, but it's like my lead management is holding my position for my return. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is great. It's like in this housing market, I have an apartment. It's going to be interesting paying for it in the next couple of weeks when my job stops paying me, but I've got means. I ate today, and I'm not in fear of. I don't have food insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like these are wonderful things to be thankful for.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My
You're very right.
my kid
When
got
we
home.
can internalize.
My kid got home late the other night, and they got home. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's yes, I look at that. It's hard for me to do stairs right now. It is. I could use some money, and my client can't pay me until his Kickstarter clears, and that's going to be another 3 or 4 weeks, and that's fine.
Ouch.
I mean, it's when you work for something like that. Once the money is cleared for the Kickstarter, you can do the work. It's just that it's not going to get to you until they pay the guy and take their cut, which is always an entertainment. But I've got good things going on, and I'm happy about those. And I will call my quarters and thank them as I do, and name each of my elements and what they represent. It's like, the table of the periodic table of elements has got 160 something on it. Yeah, I know that. And air, fire, water, and earth are states of matter. But they're also representative of emotive things. And it gives me some grounding to face my directions as I'm making little gestures. It's like I'll do it with sage, I'll do it with lit candles. These are things that help ground me and keep me in
kind of
and
focus for you to
these are focus. And then I look at any of this kind of practitionary acts are designed to change the state of mind of the practitioner. Changing the world by putting my will out into it? No, but I'm changing the focus of my will and my perception, which is, I think, closer to. You ever read The Incomplete Enchanter?
No.
Okay, Harold Shea stories are an Appendix N thing. And the character was a philosopher who was able to travel between dimensions by changing his perception of what the world was until it matched another world.
Wow.
So he traveled by Salajasmobile. And it effectively
That's amazing.
That was the premise, and that's how his stories worked. They were written in like the 40s and 50s. And
it's very, very contemporary, because that's what it is. Like we're all living different worlds because we all see realities in different ways, and it's very unhealthy to think that the way we see reality, the way we experience it, is what reality is.
No,
right?
There's as many realities as there are eyes to see it.
Yeah.
And
I have this argument with my parents all the time. Like, no, it's not because you live this that everybody lived this. Everybody lived a different life from you. And they have a very hard time grasping the possibility that their life is not the standard life,
It's what they know.
Yeah.
I know I'm not living a standard life. I mean, it's like
there is no standard life, to be honest.
No.
This is an illusion. There's this they want to believe that there is a normal, that you have to fit in this categories. There's no such. Everybody
what's normal
is a little bit different
in
a way. Yeah.
Things may be normative for you if they are regular according to what has been continuous for you. But that doesn't mean that it's normative for someone else. Their reality is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had any out of body experiences, but there was a point in time when I was trying to perform a ritual, and I was using tarot cards and snippets of things, trying to see that somebody got some of what was coming to them. So I got what was coming to me.
Mm.
And it let me know, the Wiccan Reed says, by the power of 3 times 3, so as I will it, so mote it be. That's part of the, when you present something, that times 3 is that you do a working, it exists inside of you. If it's connected to another individual, that person is connected to you. The space between which it travels is also connected to you. So those 3 things, where it happens, who it happens to, and who it originates with, are all within you. So you do, what if you do something, it's going to come at you threefold. Yeah, you make space for negativity in your heart. You poison the area around you, and you did something to someone else, and any diminishment to someone else diminishes.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I talk to my kid about this, too. Like sometimes he's doing something that he likes, and we have to, stop to do homework or do anything he doesn't like.
No.
And sometimes he just bursts out and curses and is very negative. And it's stuff that we and my wife don't do, but I'm pretty sure he's learning through my parents, So I talk to him, oh, why are you doing this? Oh, I'm upset, and etc. And my parents do this, yeah, but you realize that when you do this, you kind of putting all this negativity out in the world, and it can affect everybody that's around you, and they can get upset too. And if they do the same thing to you, the negativity just multiplying, So I get it, you're upset. Of course, you don't want to stop playing video games to do homework. But there are other ways to let this negativity out or to deal with it without making it bigger, right? Because when we're always putting out negativity, we only make the negativity bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's kind of a vicious cycle in a way, right?
And it causes
we have to stop it some
in
way.
a negative way as well. It puts them in a foul mood. So then everyone's abrasive to each other.
It just keeps going.
It's hard.
And we have to be able to stop and to, as you said, to do the briefing, the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, and just be able to wait a minute. As you said, recognizing the good stuff. Wow, I've been playing for 2 hours. I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I can stop now and do something else because I've enjoyed myself, right? Because it's very easy for our brains, our fucking brains, to just get something bad and just say, oh, it's the end. The day is over. This bad thing happened. It's the worst day ever. My kid does this all the time. And you have to, wait a minute, remember all the good stuff that is happening besides this.
I had a paradigm shift done for someone once. A friend came into work shaking with anger. This asshole cut me off on the highway. Ruined my whole fucking day. I'm like, no. You met the asshole of the day. And you met him early. And it's out of the way. Everything else from here should be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And that changed it. It's like everything's got one. And if you're not careful, it's you.
Yeah.
But there's a in health
if you haven't found one yet today, it's probably you.
In healthcare, there's a culture against saying the Q word.
The Q word?
Yes. So when the next shift comes on and ask how it was, you tell them it was horrible. It was like this all day. And you can show them an empty screen showing no work orders in place. It was like this all day. It was terrible. You don't say the Q word. Because that means...
What's the Q word?
It rhymes with "I it."
Ah, okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
because
Okay, yeah,
then it invites things
because it can spoil. Like you
to
jinxed
to
it. That's what they say, right? You
say,
jinxed
"What are
it.
you ungrateful?" Oh, so we had
Yeah,
someone come in
yeah,
once and say, "How'd it go?" And someone said that. So now it's all gonna happen to me. Ah! No,
yeah,
have one
yeah.
stupid thing happen at the beginning of your day. Get the asshole of the day out of the way quickly.
Exactly. Uh, Dennis,
Yes,
now getting more into more kind of windscope kind of questions, and I'd like to ask you more about your personality and stuff. Do you believe in aliens, ghosts, or anything supernatural? And
I
if you
think
do, have
Paul
you ever had
Mooney.
any experience with it?
I think Paul Mooney said the thing best about ghosts. If they were ghosts capable of harming people, there would not have been any white people left in America after slavery.
That's true.
And I'm like, I look at that logic by itself, and I'm like, I can't go around that.
But I mean, do you believe there could be
It could
ghosts that
be things.
can't harm us? They can only, appear or maybe communicate with us in some way?
I think they're not quite able to. They're isolated enough that they can't communicate. They may not be able to see us. I
Mm.
mean, I like the idea in the others where they were being haunted by the living family that moved into the house.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and only the children could
That was fun. That was a
really
very
smart.
intelligent move. Yeah.
But it's like here and there. We watch a lot of TikTok in this house, so it's like we see a lot of those. Past a certain hour in the night, they show a lot of videos of someone walking past the doorway and there's something moving, and they go put the lights on and there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. It's I want
Have you ever seen or not seen something
I
like
have
this?
not. I've had the
Okay.
anticipation, but never come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
Yeah.
seen like, all right, I used to put headphones on and my Walkman and play the soundtrack to Halloween while I was going through the sub basements of the hospital to go from one building to another.
Nice. Very atmospheric and
Oh,
very
good gravy,
appropriate.
yeah. But made me move a little quickly, but
Yeah.
never anything down there. Not even that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. What about aliens? Do you believe in them? Do you think
I don't
there
think
could be
I
someone
don't think we're
here?
alone,
Have you ever seen anything?
but I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
I don't think we're alone, but um,
Are you interested in this at all, or I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's like I used to read a lot of Whitley Strieber,
mm-hmm.
Communion and things, but I had liked. He had written one before Communion that was about the little people.
Mm. I don't know
I'm
that
trying
one.
to remember what it was called. Let me see if I can pull it up while we discuss.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Something else. Do you dream a lot? Do you remember your dreams? And if you do, what do you usually dream about? Do you have any idea? Any in recent dreams you might
Oh
want to share
God, bits and pieces
or
of
no?
things. Only
But do you remember normally or no?
I don't remember that well. Usually, my alarm rattles them out of me. If I wake up in the middle of it,
Ah, yeah.
I'm usually holding on to something there. Oh yeah, he wrote Wolfen and he wrote a couple of things. Fiction. There we go. Good the Night Church. Cat Magic. That was a good one.
Hmm.
That it's
Cat magic.
that had it was like Arthur Macon's The White People, which were referring to the little people,
Mm-hmm.
which the suggestion was that as they got older, they drifted out of sync with our reality, and only in places did they have connections back and forth. I haven't seen it.
Hmm.
I put offerings out every now and then, but
Yeah. Sounds cool. Yeah. I'm gonna try to check that out. That's the cat magic one,
yeah,
or that's another thing? Okay. Cat magic. Sounds cool. I love cats too, so maybe
yes.
there's something to do with cats. I hope so. uh, also, Dennis, if you could, live in any fictional world, can it be from fantasy, from games, from literature, from movies, anything else? Where would you like to live, and who would you be in that world? Like,
Oh
uh,
wow.
a kind of a character or something.
There's a lot of them I used to think about hard. Narnia during the good years. The,
What is the good years?
when the four thrones of Cair Paravel were occupied. There was no wars going
Mm.
on.
And who would you be during that period?
I wouldn't be asked to be one of the
Would you
kings and
be?
queens. Just somebody,
Mm-hmm.
just enjoying,
Someone living
just
there.
someone living there, lost in the fantasy world, as it were.
Yeah.
I like, I
And
like,
if you
I
could
like
have,
Wayne Scott fantasy a lot. Um, what I
yeah.
really liked was The Magicians. I stopped watching the show after they did something. They decided not to kill a character whose death was like the most important event in the books,
Mm-hmm.
and that just kind of ruined the functionality of it for me. I didn't watch the next season after that.
Mm.
But the world that they had
Yeah.
there, the second portion of it sounded like something I would have liked to have seen. I'd love to have magical ability, but as a witch,
Yeah.
all I am is someone who prays differently from other people for the most part.
Yeah. And if you could have any superpower, what superpower would you have, and what would be the first thing you would do with that?
The answer to this for a long time was teleportation, so I could be on time for shit. Because I'm always
It's a very popular one.
yes. I mean, even if it's appearing naked in a circle of ash in a smell of salt, But I've always liked the idea of that. But um, if it was possible to have a power, it would be to cure cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I know too many people. Too many people.
Yeah, too many for sure. Uh, Two more questions, Danny. What weird thing from fiction, from games, from literature, from movies, that you wish was real, and you could make it real in our world? What would that be, and why? It can be like an entity, a location, a faction, a power source, a magic item, anything.
The ability to do magic.
Mm-hmm.
Not
And what would
so
be
not
the
so much
first
as I
thing?
could go
And
be
wow,
Hoboken,
why?
but
How would be the magic in our world?
you'd have to be born to it, study it, have some of it be in.
You have to be born to it. No, it's not something others can access. It's only just
I'm not going elite few. I'm just saying as like
mm-hmm. It's random.
yeah,
Anybody can be born with
yeah,
it. Some kind of this.
not
Okay,
a
yeah.
bloodlines and bullshit like that. No, it's
The stars were
the
right
stars were
that
right
this
when you were
happens.
born.
Yeah, or wrong.
Yes.
It depends on. Yeah.
Excuse me, you seem to come from a large
Yeah.
family. What birth order are you again?
Yeah.
Seventh.
Uh,
Uh,
and finally, do you? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Born to it. You have to study it. What else?
it's
Would be any
I'd
kind of
like to be
authority
able to stop
controlling
bullying.
how those people use spells or no?
Oh, I wouldn't like a government like ours to be in charge of it. That's for sure. I would like
Yeah.
to be able to not have bullets work.
Hmm.
Scale it back. Yes, then you end up with like whoever, whatever asshole's the strongest ends up being the one most likely to hurt you. But
Yeah.
there's a lot more thought instead of blam blam blam, click click click, stop police.
That's
You know what
true.
I mean?
It it probably takes more to cast a spell than to just pull a trigger, and you have to think more. Should I do this? Because I have to know gets all these
Especially if
ingredients.
it's like real
You know.
Vancian magic, like in the Dying Earth,
Yeah.
where you can only fit four of
You
these
have to
things in your head at
study,
a time,
memorize.
and they're buzzing around trying to get
Yeah.
out of your head. You're like, oh
Yeah.
boy, I really have to choose when I do this.
Yeah. Have to think very carefully. uh, finally, Dennis, do you remember the last time you felt really, really happy, just grateful for being here and being alive and enjoying this? And if you do, can you share with us when was that and what is that you were doing?
All right, having mood swing makes that an odd one, because I can be stupidly happy when things are not the greatest. But
Mm-hmm.
having a good cup of coffee and a pastry, and having just made coffee for someone else, that can be a really beautiful moment. Just something simple like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And you live in New York, so good pastry is always
Yeah,
nearby somewhere. Yeah. I remember going to a cookie place there in New York that was kind of famous. Uh, I forgot the name right now,
Levain.
but I saw a woman, Levain Bakery.
Yes,
You know,
you get a big slab of
and,
half raw cookie dough.
yeah, it's delicious. And I saw a woman got out of there with two cookies in her hands, and she just bite in one and bite in the other, bite in one and bite in the other.
Life can be
Like,
beautifully simple sometimes.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
it doesn't need to be more than that. It can be.
It doesn't need to be very complicated. We make it complicated. We are always making stuff up to make us,
My wife had me
I don't
out in
know, worry about stuff.
my wife had me out in the park last week to get my legs moving, get me to bend my
Mm-hmm.
knee, and the crocuses were out and the daffodils, and it was lovely. The birds were singing.
Mm-hmm.
Something simple,
Amazing.
just
Yeah,
nothing more amazing than a warm day in spring. It didn't have to be anything
it is.
else. And was I in
Yeah.
pain? Yeah, I was in pain and I was tired, and it was a beautiful feeling.
Yeah. If we can open our eyes to what is around us, there is beauty almost,
Yeah,
everywhere. And, I traveled, I just came back from, Game on Export and Gary Cohn, and I saw the landscape of Phoenix, Arizona, and this kind of desert and cactus and the mountains. And then I went to Wisconsin, like all this very dry, woods and the snow and very completely different from here, but equally beautiful for me. But once I got back here, like looking at the streets that I walk on every day, like there's also so much beauty in the way the trees are here. They're so different from the trees out there. Like the vegetation is so lush, it's green and it's very jungle like, and also the landscaping in Wisconsin at night. Like we're walking with Steve's dog at night, and it's very very scary movie. Like wow, I would be super scared. Like it was full moon and like the clouds, and it's also beautiful. It's scary, like this very horror movie atmosphere, but also so beautiful at the same time. Yeah, it's great to be able to stop and appreciate that, and we don't do it that often. I would say we always
We're always in a hurry to get
rushing here and
someplace,
there.
and stop having the luxury of being able to stop for a minute and appreciate something.
Hmm. Stop rushing around every time, everywhere. Just late. Have this. I have to do this. I have to do that. If you can
Leave
stop
earlier so
like
you can
5
take a longer
minutes
walk.
every day or something, yeah. Dennis, thank you so much
It's been
for
a
this
pleasure.
chat, for being
Pleasure.
here, for all the times we met in New York and we were able to share a beverage and talk a little bit and go to the museum and appreciate art together. I'm very grateful for these moments. I'm very grateful for you to being here. And do you have any last message to the wonderful weirdos that are listening to us right now before we go?
Self-care is important. Don't neglect
So
yourself.
much.
You deserve the best of everything, and that especially means from yourself. Gentle.
And you can only give your best to others if you take care of yourself, right?
Be gentle to yourself, because other people sometimes aren't, and why join them?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like them, why
Perfect.
be like them?
Perfect. That's amazing advice, right? Be gentle to ourselves. There are so many people who won't be. We don't wanna join their side, right? I'm gonna tell this to my kid, because my kid always too harsh on himself and always trying to find new ways to talk to him about this. So thank you a lot for
You're
this
welcome.
advice specifically. Yeah. And Dennis, can you take us out saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.